Hey, Jim.
Is our attorney here yet?
Gibby is the attorney.
He is.
He's here.
Well, he's on me.
There he is. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there he is.
I was just my dinner. I didn't think you wanted to see me eating.
Can you hear Commissioner Drubb?
I can.
Great.
And then.
Let me call to order the town board meeting for Thursday, May 21st. Our first item on the agenda would be if you all stand with me for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. And in our moment of silence, I hope that we will remember and reflect on this Memorial Day weekend as we are about to celebrate the valiant sacrifices of so many Americans that served in this country and gave their lives. So join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now the pledge, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our next item is the statement of conflict of interest that is posted on our agenda page. If any board member has a conflict of interest for any item that we'll be considering tonight, of course, that should be declared. The next item will be the public comment period. So I will open up the floor in just a minute. Invite public comment. We would request that everyone wishing to make a public comment state their name and their address, their residence. So with that being said, I would open it up and would request that comments be held to 3 minutes or less. So if anyone would like to come and make a public comment, the floor is open. Please speak into the microphone, okay?
Hello, my name's Renee Waters, or Henry to some people. I am in Franklin at 355 Wild Street. I have worked in Highlands the majority of my life. I started out young in school up here, middle school working, but I'm coming on behalf of shopkeepers in town. We hold special events that draw in public, just like some of the events all over. And I work at a place now where we, last year with the trunk show, we had police officers show up to cut down balloons. I mean, something as simple as balloons, like, so I have been referred to the ordinance that's on hand about things flying loosely in people's faces and stuff like that. But I also work for a store in town where the owner is very precise and matter of fact and virtually in everything they do. So we displayed these balloons, tied them to some lamps on the front of the building And that was not permitted by the town. And it's not like a big giant waving thing at a car lot. It's simply balloons. And I just do not see the reasoning behind a ban on balloons. I mean, if anything, Highlands has been nothing but finely curated by some of the finest people and long-standing families who just believed wholeheartedly in this place, and we all still do. I mean, I love it. I think it's magical. It's like Hallmark. But a simple balloon can't be tied. I mean, I just think that's kind of bizarre. I think we're getting away from the small town charm when a business owner who pays taxes can't affix a string with a balloon to their building. So I asked if you could please just rewrite. I mean, I work at Wits End. We have a very low awning. If you want us to have a banner, I mean, you're going to make us look like, I don't know, ghost town with a giant banner over top of Wits End. That looks far less appealing than just a sprinkle of balloons that match colors of clothing that we're selling to all the fine women in town that come to shop, you know. So please, would you please just kind of accommodate some of the people who are paying taxes? I don't have a leg in this race. I have just worked here and loved the community, loved the customers. And I just want a little barriers. I mean, it's simple. It's a balloon. And it's our 250th anniversary. Who doesn't want to think about handing out balloons on 4th of July? To the millions of people that roll into this town to celebrate the very charm we offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Okay. Hearing none, we will now move on to the other item on the agenda, and that's to review and approve the agenda. And let me just open up, and I know there are a lot of folks here tonight concerning the noise ordinance. As we've developed this agenda, and it is a very busy and long agenda, especially as we try to finalize our budget. We will be in a predictably long closed session tonight, and we'll have the budget presentation. I'd ask the police department to come up with a experiment, if you will, or demonstration about decibels, what 70 decibels, what, 40 decibels and so forth. And they've done a lot of research on this, and I know Commissioner Weller was saying that trying to do this inside this building, listening to decibel levels and so forth, might not be real accurate. And I'm asking that we postpone the review of the noise ordinance to another date between now and our next meeting, where we set up a special meeting, probably in the afternoon, where we could actually go outside, and the suggestion of Commissioner Weller, and actually listen to decibel levels from different vantage points and so forth. So if the board is agreeable to that, I'd like to postpone the noise agenda item until we have a chance to do a further review and discussion of it. And of course, that will be announced in the public when we set that date, and where it will be, it'll be an open meeting. So that's one request I have. Do we have any other requests concerning the approval of the agenda?
I make a motion to.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, I just wanted to ask if one of the board members would like to make a motion to add an agenda item at the end to come out with action items related to closed session.
Add the closed session.
Yes, out of the closed session, so add an agenda item at the end of closed session for action items related to closed session.
Okay,
Okay, I make a motion to approve the revised agenda with the postponement of item number 11, noise ordinance, and the addition of action items coming out of the closed session.
any other discussion?
Second.
Nick, does that meet the requirement?
Yes.
All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We have an agenda. The next item will be the approval of the April 16th regular meeting minutes. Those were posted in your packet. Do we have any corrections or clarifications?
Which ones are you doing first?
I-
Are you doing January 7th first
Are you doing them all?
or all at the same time?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. We'll do the January 7th first. That's special meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. Approval of the April 9th special meeting minutes.
A motion we approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hand, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then finally, the approval of the April 16th regular meeting minutes.
I actually had a comment on that.
Okay?
It's on page 22. It's the approval of the maintenance contract, the mowing contracts. And it actually says the motion was to accept the consent agenda as amended rather than approval of the maintenance contract.
Okay. Gibby, did you get that correction? All right. Any other questions? Clarification or corrections?
Make a motion we approve as amended.
Okay?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Our next item will be reports, starting with the mayor. So let me go over some items, for my report. First of all, our town manager, Joshua Ward, and I recently attended the League of Municipalities annual conference called City Vision. That's always a, educational experience for both Josh and myself. We traveled to Raleigh. I did my ethics training at the, City Vision. We had a lawyer from the School of Government who did that training. It, is required by newly elected officials, and I, spent two hours in that session. I will point one thing out. That's about my third, or fourth, ethics training session. One of the things that, I hear a lot of people say that there's a conflict of interest here and there and so forth. I've become pretty familiar with, conflict of, interest, regulations in the state of North Carolina. And sometimes people think there's a conflict of interest, but if you look at the statutes, it really doesn't measure up to that. But, that was a good, workshop, that, and a refresher course for me. And then I went to two other workshops. One was on risk management, that the, League of Municipalities provides that service, and the word was consult your town attorney. There are so many lawsuits now against municipalities and towns throughout the country, but especially in North Carolina, that, it is a different world, as the presenters said, than even 5 years ago when it comes to managing risk, managing lawsuits as a result of something that a municipality did. So that was very helpful. And then one of the most fascinating, workshops was on the use of AI in government. And the presenter said a lot of people are very apprehensive about using AI, but we've been using it now for a number of years. Even the simple things like word processing and spell check are the type of AI. It's just, of course, exponentially intensifying. And that government agencies will be using AI. One of the big issues was, do you declare that this document was created with the assistance of AI versus someone actually writing it? They were talking about things like the way we take notes now. AI might be a way of helping relieve some of the labor involved in that. Yet at the same time, they were saying you always need your staff and people to verify the work that AI has done. So that was also a very good, good workshop. Two other things. I went to the Southwestern Commission executive board meeting this week. Couple of topics of concern. One was AI. And they were talking about how some people were talking about how they're already using it in government activities. Another thing that we were talking about, and I want to bring this up before the board because I tend to be an alarmist, especially since the days of confrontation over short-term rentals. But it was noted, especially over in Cherokee County and other places, that data centers, big data centers, are now being placed throughout the country. And Western Carolina is a prime area where that is happening. And of course, Bitcoin mining and so forth. We do not have any regulations, I don't think, in town. It might be that we're so small that we'd never have to worry about that, but that's something we might need to look at downstream and see if we need to address that trend. And then the other two things, one was we discussed the concerns that many municipal governments and counties now expressing about the situation in Asheville with Mission HCA. And no action or anything was taken, but there's a lot of municipalities that are concerned about the situation with HCA at their Mission campus and their immediate jeopardies that they've had, 3 in the past recent years. And then the big talk was about housing, workforce housing. I call it now even attainable housing. How counties and municipalities can address these issues. And I'm going to come out and I'll start right now. It's something that I've been kind of overwhelmed with as the mayor. What can we do? I'm not sure there are clear paths that can be followed, but it is something the county, the community, we all need to start looking at and exploring, because we are going to create a time bomb if our housing market keeps going up in price. And then we have young professionals, for example, who would like to live and work in these beautiful areas and communities. If they can't afford a place to live, it is going to be a real problem for all these communities. And I'm going to want to maybe create a kind of consortium workforce of nonprofits, maybe churches, businesses, a whole group of stakeholders, and see are there some things that we can do? Are there some things that we can do in the town when it comes to our ordinances or anything that would might promote that? Or overall, if there's something that can be done to at least start to address this critical need. So I'll be sharing my ideas later with the public and everyone. And then the other thing is the property tax issue that's going on in Raleigh. When we were at City Visions and I was at a mayor's association luncheon, we had a staff member from the League of Municipalities that tracks everything that's going on in the legislature. And they gave an overview of where the legislature in this short session is with the issue of property tax. There were 2 directions. One from the Senate was to just shut it all down, no reevaluation, and take an overview of controlling the increases in property taxes of counties and municipalities. And then the House was talking about having a constitutional amendment on the ballot this November that would give the legislature authority to limit and control property tax increases from counties down to municipalities. It's my understanding that that legislation is now moving forward, and it very well could be a case where there would be a constitutional amendment referendum on the ballot in November to give the legislature authority to control the rate of increases on property taxes. Also, they have, and I think it's a bad idea, maybe a constitutional amendment that would set the state income tax rate, I think at 3.5. It's going that way anyway now with their legislation they've got in place, but it would make it a constitutional amendment that you couldn't raise income tax beyond 3.5 percent. Some people think that's very positive. Others point out that that might handcuff the legislature and the state if there's a situation where they need to raise more revenue. So we'll be watching those issues as they develop in Raleigh. And then finally, I would like to, as a member of Post 370 of the American Legion, and as the mayor, I would like to encourage everyone to attend the Memorial Day commemoration at the Veterans Park in front of the police department this coming Monday at 10 o'clock, and just take a few moments to pay tribute to the fallen military people that have made the ultimate sacrifice for this country. So that's my report, and I will now turn it over to any commissioner who would like to file a report or an update.
Nothing today.
I'm just going to give you a quick report on the planning, Macon County Planning Board and the redistricting that they're trying to do.
And you went for the first meeting as our liaison.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and they're going to be discussing it again at the meeting on the 11th. I don't think that they've made any decisions. I think there's a lot of maybe misinformation and misunderstanding of what actually the proposals are and what the consequences and what the upsides and downsides are. And it's to me, it's pretty straightforward, but I think everybody throws a lot of stuff in there. And so I was just going to say, if there was any reason that you felt that I should have a public explanation hearing up here prior to that, to have people understand it and understand the options that they're putting forward, so everybody understands this is on the same page. Let me just say, even the people in that room don't really understand it, or if they don't understand it, they're not telling you the full truth, let's say, of what all the consequences would be. So they do have a public comment period before each one of those meetings, so I would encourage everybody to go down there and talk about it specifically. But if you wanted, and I don't know, I'm just offering, if you wanted to talk to me about it, or if you wanted a special, because the next meeting is the 11th of June. So the next 2 weeks, to just talk about what the proposal is and the ins and outs of how it would work.
Okay. Commissioner Patterson, I think maybe we could get together and just set a date and time and spread, make it a public announcement. And if people wanted to come.
Yeah, and just be a
commissioner.
walk-in
Information.
information thing. Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it'd be good.
I just think it's really important that the voters, because that's who we're talking about here, is their right to vote, and who their right to vote is for, to vote for their representative, for their government, that they understand what the proposals are and how it would impact how the county runs.
Well, I appreciate your leadership in this issue. We all went down to the public meeting, and that's a packed house, and everybody was saying, slow this process down and let's really analyze what are the options and what courses we could follow. So I think it's, welcome that we could do a session like that with people here in Highlands.
Right.
And the whole county, anybody can come.
Well, anybody, right, exactly. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other updates before I ask our county manager for his report? Go ahead.
An update on a few of the projects we have going on. Dog Mountain is moving along. They're erecting the tank right now. It should be finished sometime next week. Also the pump station building, the blocks have been laid. They're getting ready to put the roof on it. The pumps are in. So it's a matter of installing those. Everybody's connected to the new line, except I think for one. So they're going to be looking at burying the underground conduit for the fiber for the SCADA system. And they're also working with CITI, which we work with for all our SCADA and electronics as well. So everything's kind of coming together with that project. Hopefully, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, it'll finish up. Also, the force main on Highway 64, which is also Palisades Drive and Oak Lane. That project will start next week. And so you'll be seeing some folks out there that'll probably go ahead and get started on Highway 64 early next week to get those repairs completed next week, early in the week, before traffic gets any heavier. Also, the emergency action plan that the state water quality was requiring from us for the dam safety was requiring from us for Lake Sequoia Dam. That has been updated by McGill. It's been sent into the state and the state has approved that. So we have a new emergency action plan on that. Also, town hall will be closed Monday, the 25th for the Memorial Day holiday.
Thank you. All right, our next item would be the consent agenda. Anyone have any questions concerning the items in the consent agenda?
Move that be approved.
Second.
Second, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hands, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, our next item will be the Mirror Lake dredging update. That's Michael Hanson of McGill and Associates. I know some people were asking me, well, what's Mike gonna say and everything? I was saying, I do not know. This is an update and a new presentation. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you. Could you pull that microphone close? Sure. So it goes out on the broadcast.
This gonna work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just make sure you're speaking.
Okay.
Just up there.
Ah, there it is.
Right there.
All right, very good. So thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, technical adjustments.
Yeah,
Thank you
my
very
mic
much.
died.
Thank you very much for the invite to come in and give you an update on where we stand on the project. While I am, I guess, sorry to say that we still don't have actual dredging occurring yet. We are a significant step forward in being able to get to that point. And from our last discussion, we had presented to you that we were working on, after the board had made the selection on which option to move forward with, we now needed to sort through where we were going to put the dredge material as we pulled it out. That's what we've been working on over the last several months. That's taken a coordinated effort between multiple different groups within our engineering firm, some significant contacts with various permitting agencies, as well as coordination with multiple people at the county and town staff. So it's been a fairly active time period on our side, although it's not been seen publicly. Completed steps, we're on slide 2. Completed steps at this point, preliminary scoping has been done, preliminary engineering report has been done. The board selection of option 2A is complete. And what I'm here to tell you about now is the fourth item, which the town and the county entered into an interlocal agreement for the use of the transfer station for dredge disposal. And we previously had talked about that being the most economical and most feasible option versus the other options that we're considering. And tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what all that involved. So next slide. Recent activities include evaluation of the dredge disposal options that we talked about last time, the engineering design for the landfill itself. Once we were at least in preliminary discussions with the county, and it seemed like we're moving in the direction of everyone being able to find a yes solution for use of that that facility. We needed to go through multiple different preliminary evaluations, similar to what we did for the dredging project. Developing multiple grading plan scenarios to find one that was acceptable to the county, as well as capable of containing all of the material that we expect we're going to be pulling out of the lake that will need to be disposed at that location. Expanding the scope of survey, because we're now going to have to do survey on the landfill property to be able to define all of the areas that we're going to be utilizing for the purposes of disposal, as well as some of the other areas that are part of the landfill that were part of the agreement between the town and the county to do improvements on the landfill site. I guess as a quid pro quo, so that they got something out of it, you got something out of it. And there's a variety of things that I'll talk about as far as what was involved in those improvements. Some are directly serving the project and some are directly serving the transfer station. Some are shared between the two. We had to go through definition of the solid waste design and permit requirements. That's what I alluded to earlier with the discussion of various coordination with DEQ and other permitting agencies, as well as coordination with the county and their landfill staff on what they were going to require for testing and other things to confirm that they were willing to accept the dredge material. Definition of vegetation management area. That was the trade-off. They currently are in a very confined space, operating for their vegetation management area on the transfer station. The area that we're working in to do the disposal of the materials immediately adjacent to it. So we're going to do additional clearing in that same area that allows them to expand their operational area and makes it a little bit easier for them to accept and process that waste and then transfer it off site. Also, the additional testing I mentioned before, there was, in addition to the testing we did for the use of the dredge material and disposal, there was things that were now specific to the landfill and their permit requirements that we needed to do additional testing on. Definition of the landfill limits of survey, both for the improvements as well as for the dredge area. Definition of the added construction contract requirements, because now we've got a new element of area that a contractor is going to be responsible for prepping that area to receive the dredge material, to do all of the normal processing during the time that the dredge material is coming on site, to do the vegetative management area, and then ultimately to close that area consistent with the modification permit that we're going to need to do for the landfill itself. We assisted the town and the county with the development of the interlocal agreement, and ultimately assisted the town with another element of compromise between the county and the town as far as operations are concerned, on how the management of the vegetative materials that would normally come in during the period of operation that we're expecting the dredge material to be pulled in. They're going to working in a more limited site than there already are. So we need to come up with alternatives on how to better manage that material and limit the amount of material coming to that site. Preliminary phasing plan, that goes again back to making sure that as the dredge material is coming in and out of the site, that they're not interfering with the operations of the transfer station. And we expect as the operations proceed for filling, we're going to end up with probably multiple different access scenarios that will have to be implemented by the contractor as they move from area to area. And we'll need to go through getting approval from the county on that phasing plan. And then, of course, all of these things were multiple phone calls, meetings, some in person to try and get all this worked out.
Can I ask you a question, Mike?
Yes.
I know there's a real strategic benefit in having the short distance to take it to the landfill. If we hadn't have developed this interlocal agreement and we were taking it to another landfill, like down in Franklin or some other site, would we have still been required to do all of this testing and prep and control of where we'd be depositing the sediment and all the testing?
I suspect that a good majority of the things that we ended up doing here to satisfy the ability to utilize this landfill, we would have ended up needing to do in order to utilize the Franklin landfill.
Okay.
One of the other constraining factors is during the time that we were going through this process and we were having one-on-one conversations with the county, one of the things that became clear was that the county didn't have area on the Franklin landfill to be able to receive the volume of material that we're going to be dealing with. So while that was part of the early consideration, it became clear as we moved through this process that that was probably going to be a bigger lift to be able to make that happen, because they did not feel confident they'd be able to directly use the material as daily cover, so that they're going to want to try and put it in some isolated area, which is essentially what we're doing here. At which point then it opens up all the other things we've already had to do. We would just be doing it at a different site.
And I'm not being flippant, and Commissioner Tate might understand this with the landfill, the way they've opened up cells and planned, it's filling up fast. And now they've got a demolition of a high school that they'll have to handle too. So this would have been just more
Right.
stress on
Right.
that.
We
landfill.
actually would have had more competing factors to deal with at Franklin. In addition to the additional travel time, and there's significant cost savings for not having to deal with the long haul distance of all the material to get it to Franklin.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so next slide, selected disposal sites. So here, I wanted to talk a little bit about the implications on the landfill itself. We've introduced some of this already, but as we move forward, we're going to have to finalize the survey. We already have that scheduled, and that should be getting underway shortly. We're going to have to finalize the plan for the vegetative management area modifications, move that through both county approval, town approval, and then also ultimately through DEQ approval, because it'll be part of a modification to their operations permit. Access and phasing plan, I mentioned that earlier. We'll have to go through and put that in place. Dredge material management plan. That's going to be something that we're going to have to do as part of our permit as we move into DEQ to get approval for the dredging project. They'll be looking for part of that permit to include a management plan for how that material is being transported from the site to the disposal site, how it's being managed at that site. The dredge disposal grading plan and erosion sediment control, those would be, again, ultimate different phases of the project. As fill goes in, the contractor is going to have to manage that site and the material that's being placed, put up erosion sediment control and those types of measures that you would do for a normal construction site. Landfill operating permit, I already mentioned. We've got to modify that permit under both for the operation of the vegetation management area as well as for the operation of the dredge disposal site, because we're working in an area that's adjacent to the old closed portion of the landfill. We already checked with that. The DEQ said that they didn't have any problems with us proceeding that way, but we do have to go through that process. NCDOT driveway permit, one of the other concessions that we ended up making with the county was they didn't want all the dredge material coming in through the main entrance of the transfer station because it would conflict with the normal operations. So we're putting in an alternate separate driveway that'll be managed by the contractor, and public will be restricted from entering that. So it'll be dedicated just for that use. In the future, that will provide a secondary access for the county to utilize to get in and get equipment in and out to their vegetative management area, make it easier for them to haul material out, and that type of thing. And then the dredge site closure plan that I mentioned before, that's part again of the operation permit for the landfill. Okay, next slide. This talks a little bit more about the contractor's responsibilities. And I'm sorry?
Just put it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This talks a little bit more about the contractor's responsibilities. Whether or not we hire a separate contractor to do this work on the landfill, or we put it out as part of the first dredge phase contract, and make the contractor bring in additional subs that would manage this site for them. Because likely the dredge contractors that we would be looking to do this job are probably not going to also manage the site civil work that's taking place on the landfill. Some may, but most will probably put that out to a subconsultant. I think there's pros and cons, and we'll certainly have further discussions with you all on how to proceed with that as we get towards the bid documents. But for right now, I wanted to explore the things that will be additional responsibilities of a contractor on this site now that we've agreed to utilization of this location. We've got the initial site prep, including alternate access road, the sediment basin for control of stormwater, and tree removal. Portions of the site that we're going to be putting the dredge material in have existing tree cover on them that's grown up since the landfill closure had taken place some years ago. Grading of improved vegetation management area, as I mentioned earlier, that's adjacent to our disposal site. Management of the dredge materials throughout the project. Finding final grading and seeding of the dredge disposal area because it will have to be stabilized once it's completed. And then final closure of that site. As we proceed forward, the next steps that we're looking at doing is completing the design and going into permitting. As we had already identified in prior discussions, we're looking at phase 2 being the lake dredge and phase 3 being the river dredge. We're expecting that we'll be bidding those separately, but in sequence, so that if we want to proceed, and this is again another decision that the town will have to make when we get to that stage, do we want to proceed with bidding the phase 3 while the phase 2 is in construction and potentially have 2 different contractors doing that work? Or do you want to separate them and have them come by the end of this, starting the new phase? Again, pros and cons. Obviously, you get it done quicker if you end up with both of them going on at the same time. But we've got very confined space. Having 2 contractors work in that same area, trying to haul material in and out with equipment, may be a bit complex to try and organize and plan out. So we'll talk about some of the pros and cons of that. The next 2 slides are schedule slides. I don't expect that everyone's going to be able to see the details on the screen, but I did highlight a few things in red that I think are key dates that we're looking for that are now updated dates from the last time that you saw these schedules. So on the first phase, the first slide is primarily on phase 2, looking to go through design between now and December. And then going into, that includes the permitting period that we're anticipating, so that puts us bidding after the first of the year. Everything goes as planned. We get permits moving through based on our original projections for dates. That would put us under construction in March, thereabouts, of 27. We're anticipating a year-long construction, so that would carry us through March of 28. That works out fairly well based on last year where we had a fairly cold February and March. If we look at getting contractors actually up and running for phase one, they delayed coming in and doing the remainder of the work for phase one until after that hard freeze was off. So March is about the right time for us to have a contractor underway. As we look to the next slide, this addresses primarily phase three. And right now, I'm assuming that there's an overlap. So we'll have construction ongoing on phase one. And then about a month in, we would bid out phase three. And that puts you on the most aggressive schedule to get to the end date. But it also adds a lot of complexities on coordination of multiple contractors if you don't end up with the same contractor winning both bids. So we need to talk a little bit more about that. And as we're moving forward here, if we follow this schedule that I had planned out, that puts us at an end date of August 28 for a final completion. The phase two, we're expecting a little bit longer permitting period. So that's one of the things that we won't end up with, like literally a month overlap, or I guess 11-month overlap, because the permitting period's longer. We'll end up with, if we end up moving it through design, by the time we get to bidding, we're probably going to be several months into construction on the other project. So that's what we have there. I guess the end slide, as I've already mentioned, we've got a few things that we need to further coordinate with the town as we move forward through design, talking about separation of contracts or combinations of contracts. The phase two and phase three, some of the things that we need to now do on the landfill may dictate that we want to have some of the material coming out of phase three early. We've got to go through and do a soil balance across that site, verify how much material is going to be moved around and whether or not we have sufficient material to on-site to be able to grade in the road and the other improvements that we need to do in order to get the material back into the disposal area. So we'll have further discussions with you on that as we know more about that. One of the things that's still in discussions with the county is the disposal of the trees. We had asked in our last meeting that as we remove the trees from the areas that we need to for our operations, they have a vegetative management area there that could we utilize that area to dispose of the trees and have them manage it with their other bulk. They're going to look at what their relative cost is for the transport of that material, and we'll have to determine whether or not that makes sense to put into the contract, or if we make that the responsibility of the contractor to deal with on their own. So that's everything that I wanted to speak to. I certainly am open to questions or discussion if we have it.
I'll start and then I'll turn it over. I've been getting people, and we've got some folks from Mirror Lake here. They're very concerned. They're interested in knowing what are the techniques that'll be used in dredging.
Mhm.
I don't think you're at that final stage of being able to describe those at this time, but some people say, well, are they going to use big long reach excavators or floating machines that can excavate, or is it going to be vacuum techniques like we saw at the River Sand project, earlier?
I can
When
speak
do-
to some
when
of
do-
that.
Okay.
As of right now, some of the type of dredging techniques that will likely be utilized in the phase two versus the phase three area are going to be dictated by the type of material and the access. So because phase two is primarily open water and we're dealing with primarily fine silts, we're expecting that the contractor is likely going to follow a procedure similar to what phase one was. And that's based on just our background knowledge of these types of projects in the past, as well as some early discussions that we had with that contractor and why they chose that methodology and some of the other things that went along with that methodology and how they manage their dredge material. So I think all indications point in the direction of having hydraulic dredging for phase 2. When we get into phase 3, we're going to get into a much more confined area. We're in the riverine section of the lake at that point, and we're also dealing with much coarser materials. So it would lend itself towards more of a clamshell type operation where they bring in a barge and they work their way up the channel, basically creating the water level for the barge to be able to float as they work up the channel. And that allows them to work in a more confined space, and they don't have to have the volume of water that's necessary for them to do the hydraulic dredging that they will be utilizing in the open water area. It's also becomes more difficult for them to pump the material further distances with the heavier coarse grain materials. So we're expecting that they may end up with either managing that material through hoppers and pumping it to shore, but in shorter distances, or they may end up barging it and basically sitting on one barge with the track hoe or the clamshell bucket, and then moving it over and putting it directly on another barge. And as that barge fills up, they would pull that out, take it over for disposal, and they'd bring in another empty barge. So that's what we're expecting. But I would say that it is in the best interest of the town to leave the method of dredge process and the method of management of the material up to the contractor, because you'll get the best price that way. If the more we dictate how they need to do their job, the more you're going to see an increase in pricing and probably a limitation on the number of contractors who are willing to bid the job, because then we're going to limit only to contractors that have that type of equipment and that type of personnel that's trained in those operations. So we want to try and keep it open as much as we can, but we do have a fairly good, I think, idea of the likely methods that will be used in both phases.
I had a question, but I feel he just answered it. So.
Well, I had a question then from off your question. So does the permitting have to be specify the method? Or
So
does a permit come to the town or does a permit come to the contractor?
the permit comes to the town. And so the town is responsible for managing the contractor's compliance with the permit. And that will be part of what we're doing for the town as part of the construction administrations. We'll be observing both the means and methods that the contractor is doing, and that the end result of their methodology is still in compliance with the permit requirements. I mentioned earlier that we thought that phase 3 was going to end up being a longer permit time. And again, when we go into DEQ and we present the permit package, we're going to leave things open as much as we can as far as the actual type of dredge mechanisms that will occur. But they're also going to make the similar assessments that we did as far as the type of material and the openness versus the confined areas of phase 3. And we're expecting that they're going to push down the path of an individual permit on phase 3, whereas we're likely going to be able to get a nationwide permit on phase 2. That's partially because of the type of dredge work that's being done, and partially because of the amount of wetland impacts that we're going to have in the narrower area upstream versus in the lake. We can limit the amount of wetland impacts we have because we've got much larger area to work in. And we don't end up having to dredge right up to the shoreline. So those two things are going to be primary factors in the type of permit that we ultimately get granted. So we'll likely be seeking that nationwide, which is a shorter pathway to a permit than the individual permit. The individual permit has some additional requirements for the agency to go through public notice and other things that take longer.
I kind of thought DEQ may have dictated the kind of dredging that we can do.
They did not and will not dictate the type of dredging that is to be done, but they will anticipate what type of dredging will be done and adjust their permitting accordingly.
There are standards that have to be met.
Correct.
I have a question. Go ahead.
Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I just saw in your phase 2 and phase 3 that you had 240 days for each dredging duration, which is 8 months each. Is that based on, is that just a plug, or do you think it really is going to take 8 months for phase 2 and 8 months for phase 3 for the actual work versus permitting and mobilization?
So at this point, it's certainly an estimate. We will be looking at the bids as they come in, and the contractor will dictate the actual time. We will set up the bid documents with an anticipated time frame. And one of the things that we want to be careful of is to not constrain the contractor in time as well as in practice. The shorter duration that we put on the contractor, again, the price typically goes up. So part of that original time that we've put in the schedule is based on what we saw for the duration of time that it took for phase 1 and the type of operation that they were doing. And then looking at the work that we're doing, the volume of material that's coming out in phase 1, it's a much higher volume of material in phase 1 than it is in phase 2. And it's likely going to take longer for the dewatering to occur. And that's going to delay the contractor being able to just go in, take the material directly off of the, out of the dredge bag and haul it off. In the experience of phase 1, they had on the order of, if I remember correctly, it was like 25 to 30 days of sit time between when the bag was full and the time that they actually were able to go in and open the bag and remove that material and handle it after it had dewatered enough. And that's why in phase 1, they had times where they had no operations going on. They came in, they dredged, they filled the bag, and then they left. They waited for the bag to drain. They came back in, managed the bag, put in a new bag, then they did another round of dredging. We're looking at the way that we're doing the plan for phase 2 to try and give a larger area. The phase 1, they confined themselves to a very small area and they didn't have multiple bags going. So in phase 2, we're expecting to have multiple bags operational, which should allow the contractor to have continuous operations to move from bag to bag as the first bag is draining to be able to operate and continuously operate to move on to the next one. But all of this is going to take coordination. And again, with the confined spaces that we have in this area, the contractor can't come in and bring in multiple pieces of equipment and a bunch of manpower. They're going to be limited to small equipment and limited access and not being able to work on top of each other. So that's going to prolong the overall period of time. If we see any shorter duration, my expectation is we'll probably see it in phase 3 versus phase 2. I think phase 2 will likely take the full time.
Okay.
Okay, so I just a kind of a follow on to that, because you actually, nailed sort of one of my concerns as a resident and the residents around there. The duration that they would let after the hydraulic dredging and filling up the sock, the duration of sometimes when they would let it sit, as you actually said, was 25 to 30 days. And you could walk by it and see that no dewatering was occurring. There was just nothing. And so I guess that the request would be, because we've had our experience with them, but the request would be in the bid documents, if they're using hydraulic dredging, that we specify that, they need to get on with it. Basically, once it's dewatered, come and cut it open and start another one. And to your point, you don't want to put requirements in that start making people work nights and weekends, because that would be horrible for the neighbors, but it would also be horrible for the price. But I guess that it just didn't feel like in this first phase that there was any urgency on the part of the contractor. And because you would see them, sometimes they would do it. And I walk by there almost every day. It would only sit 5 to 7 days. They'd cut it open and move. And then the other times it would stay there, to your point, 25 to 30 days. So that's my request, is in the hydraulic phase dredging portion, to include something in the bid documents that asks them to move along.
Is there a, Sorry.
Look, if I could respond to that.
Mhm.
One of the options that we can discuss with the town, as we go into the final development of the bid documents is the inclusion of enhancements for the contractor for early completion.
Yeah, 8
That's
months is a
something that
lot.
you want to consider. That's certainly something that we can do. Typically, like in an NCDOT job, there might be some financial benefit or that they can receive if they are going to commit to an early delivery. And that is typically a negotiated process with the contractor. But we can certainly add that to the bid documents, and we can do it in a variety of different ways. So we can talk with you about what those options are if that's something that the town wants to consider.
Well, I think that, instead of enhancements is one way to approach it, but then also just saying, look, as part of the standard for someone bidding on it, there needs to be provided the weather's okay, which doesn't seem to affect those bags that much because they're so full and tight, to be honest. Um, that, just making the baseline standard that there has to be a 5 to 7 day maximum of it just sitting there. And then, I guess to your point, the other commissioners and other residents might have an opinion on how to spend the money on enhancements, but I'd like to just see a baseline standard of them having a maximum duration. And I had sort of one more follow-up question. Between phase 2 and phase 3, how many cubic yards are we talking about, do you think?
I did not put that in this slideshow, and I don't remember off the top of my head the numbers from the last slideshow.
That's fine.
I can
No
provide
problem.
that to you as a follow-up if you.
No, I was just trying to kind of calculate how many trucks there's going to be because it sounds like it's going to be a massive operation from that the
Yes,
overhead.
there's going to be a much greater movement of material.
Mhm.
It just off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, it was something in the order of 60,000 yards.
Wow.
And
So at
that's a
15
lot of
yards a dump
trucks.
truck, that's a lot.
Yes. And the great majority of that was in phase 2. Phase 3, I think, was 20% of that overall volume. Phase 3 was the majority of, or phase 2 was the majority of that volume. So phase 2 is going to be a much bigger operation.
And I remember in phase 1, and this is just kind of, it's not real scientific or specific, but I remember talking to those folks, and it seems like they were used about 150 trips to dispose of what they dredged, and that was a small percentage of what we're talking about.
Correct. Their dredging total, I think, was less than 5,000 yards. So we're looking at
Magnitude of
12 times that.
Yeah.
So my question was kind of piggybacking off what Bill was saying is there a moisture content that we have negotiated with the county as to what we can actually put in that area? In other words, is there just a how dry it gets and it never gets any drier, or is there an actual moisture content that they have to meet before we can put it in that disposal area?
So up to this point, there has not been a specific moisture content that has been written into the interlocal agreement, to my knowledge. And I think it's been signed by both parties. The county has made it clear that that in terms that they used, they're expecting the material is not going to be delivered as soup. So they do have an expectation of what the material is going to look like and that it's going to be workable, and it's literally not going to be just dumping it and having a pond out there of sediment and water. Again, looking at what happened in phase 1, they had that 30-day period. Now, did it take the full 30 days to get to a point where it was workable? I don't know. I wasn't part of that operation. So, I don't know if it was usable at 15 or usable at 30. One of the things that we did is recognizing that the material they were doing was going to be potentially different mixture of material than what we're dealing with when we get into the open water, because they were kind of in that transition zone between the riverine and the open water. We've had our geotech go back in and look at the actual samples that were taken from the open water zone, and then make some projections on the amount of time necessary with the addition of the chemicals that were put in under phase one to basically coagulate and make that water seep out faster. Coagulate the materials in the bag and try and drain the bag down faster. If it weren't for the addition of the chemicals, the time period to drain those material to a workable fashion is probably going to be something on the order of 60 days. The addition of the coagulants make it so that that happens much faster. And right now, our estimates are that it's in that 20 to 30 day range. And we'll know more when we get out on the site and we have the contractor actually working the site and adding the coagulant that they choose and seeing how long it's taking. And if they're going beyond what we anticipated, we'll be working with them to say, you need to consider utilization of a different coagulant material because you're going to be extending beyond the limits of the contract on the process that you're on. There are certain things that we can encourage them to do based on the timelines that are committed to in the contract. We can't dictate to them the material they use or the process they use it in. Or I should say we choose not to.
So DEQ in the permitting process doesn't have a moisture content that they aim for.
DEQ does not. DEQ does have a limitation on the coagulants that can be used. And that was one of the things that delayed phase one, by the way, was the one that contractor wanted to use was not on DEQ's list, but that contractor had direct experience utilizing that chemical. And they went through the process of actually modifying the allowable coagulants that DEQ had in their list to get theirs accepted so that they could use it on that project. So the town will benefit from that because now it's on the list. And I would agree that the one they used was a much more aggressive chemical than the others that were available through normal DEQ because their coagulants weren't really geared towards specifically dredging. They were for other purposes that are utilized across the range of things that they permit.
Okay. I know we have Pat Gleason and some folks from the Mirror Lake Improvement Association here tonight, and I would open it up. If y'all have any questions of Mike or concerns, be happy to.
First of all, that's phase one.
Why don't you come up here? Share the mic with Pat. Thank you.
So thank you to the board and the mayor. Phase one, having been completed, focused on restoration, beautification, both those things were accomplished. Phase 2, 3, and maybe 4 are part of the $5 million grant. My question would be, with everything we're doing in engineering prep, how much of the 5 million is actually going to be left to dredge?
The engineering, go ahead, you answer it.
So we have been working through the existing contract that we have to deal with the issues on the interlocal agreement. And as we move forward from here, a lot of the original budget that we had allocated for the permitting and design has been utilized for this interlocal agreement that wasn't anticipated originally. So we will be coming back to the board with that information on how much not only is a shift in the engineering cost, there's also a shift in the construction cost because the contractor is also going to have additional cost in their contract to manage this site now that it's being put into the contract. So we're going to be coming back with both of those. My hope is to be back at this board meeting next month to have that information. And that's the coordination. Josh and I have a little bit of work to do between now and then to get there.
And it's kind of a juggling act in that we had the opportunity to put the dredging material at Rich Gap. Yes, we'll have to spend money to develop that site, but the cost savings of not having to transport it a long distance, in theory, will help us do more dredging. Is that not right?
Yes, I still believe that is the case, especially after the limitations that we discovered during this process on Franklin landfill. And the viability of finding private sites to take this volume of material, as we said earlier, is just not optional for the town to consider, like was done in phase one. They were dealing with much smaller quantities of material, and they still needed multiple private sites to take it to, some outside the state of North Carolina. To try and do that on a 12-fold operation, I think would be an untenable goal with the number of people that we'd have to deal with individually to try and get that done. So it was really came down to Franklin landfill or Rich Gap as our two most viable alternatives. And I think in the end, you're still going to end up more cost effective here than if we had gone down to Franklin.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, Mr. Mayor, my ask would be maybe by the next meeting or what would it be, the July meeting, that there be some real definition around the actual phases and the geography that it would encompass. There's a number of people here from different phases of the lake. All of them are kind of here tonight to say, are we going to do the Mill Creek Channel? How far up towards Big Pine Acres will we get? How far into the big water will we get? The focus of phase one with the private money that we had was simply to start at the bridge and get as much done as we possibly could upstream and downstream. It looks pretty good. If you've driven by the last couple of weeks and you've seen algae and you're going, oh my gosh, the lake, the sediment is coming back. There's a lot of top water algae that's occurred because we haven't had much rain. We've had a lot of sun and there hasn't been much current going through there. So you're seeing a lot of top water algae. But my ask would be on behalf of everybody that's here is, can we get some definition around where exactly will we be and how much money will we have to be able to do it?
Okay. Pat, those are very important questions. And I know that Mike will be working on those and get us those answers without delay as soon as possible, Mike?
Yes, as we've worked through all of this process, we've been keeping a balance sheet of, what the additional costs that are being added into the project in order to accomplish this and how they're impacting the volume of dredge. And up to this point, we're at least the preliminary level, and once we get into design, we'll know more detail, that we've been trying to limit the change in dredge volume to a change in the depth of dredging in the open water, rather than a change in the limits of dredging on the project. So we've tried not to eliminate one segment of the project that was originally conceived, but rather limit the depth of dredging in the open water. Because originally we were looking at going all the way down to 16, 18 feet. There's not an absolute necessity to do that. We can pull that up to, if we pull that bottom level up to 14 feet, we end up leaving a lot of the material that we're anticipating will be outside of the affordable range and still not impact the project as a whole. So that's kind of the balance we've done so far.
And I would just say to Bill's still here.
Hi, Pat.
Bill, to the timeline piece, my preference, and I think, hopefully I speak for our board, would be to not, we've waited this long, okay? We've been working on this for 5, 6, 7 years. Let's not fast track it at the expense of the 5 million. Let's be patient. We've been patient up till now, and let's let this timeline play out the way it will to get the most efficiency out of the 5 million. And that would be my preference.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Ask a quick question. Mike,
Yeah,
I was gonna say this to speak to you all, and you in person. Just a quick question. You mentioned that the riverine portion was called phase 3. Could Mike be able to utilize, track load materials and barges? In the very beginning, we were told that that wasn't gonna be an option. If that in fact is an option, I'm not familiar with hydraulic dredging that much, but I do know that hydraulic dredging is not effective whenever you have substructure, stumps and trees and so forth. And that's what a lot of this is. I happen to be at ground zero of phase 1 and have watched it. And there was only so much effectiveness, and I have a picture to show that it was really only in the main channel that I could get. It couldn't get, we're still a foot and 2 feet on the sides, and it was projected to go to 8 feet, just didn't. What I'm trying to ask you is this: if in fact, I am familiar with oil field site preparation for drilling, and if in fact a storm cat could be used as it would be a riverine to go and, which, as you know, self-propels, self-floats, and so forth. If that piece of equipment could be used in phase 1, it would have been completed in 2 to 3 weeks, just like the old they do things very quickly. They would have excavated that site very, very quickly, put it on the barges, put it on the trucks and all. Is there a possibility that that could happen? And how does a hydraulic dredging get by not being able to dredge on stumps and trees? Is that a fair question?
Yeah. All right. So I guess to try and paraphrase, want to understand the differences between hydraulic dredging and the more mechanical based dredging, and why is hydraulic dredging being proposed for phase 2? Why couldn't the mechanical dredging that we're likely expecting to occur in phase 3 also be used in phase 2?
Or in phase 1, we're past that, I know.
Right.
But there could be some remediation too.
So there are a few things that I alluded to earlier that really are going to dictate the type of dredging that is best utilized. Let me talk about permitting first. As you get into mechanical dredging, you have a lot less control over the sedimentation as it falls off the barge as you're trying to operate and manipulate that material to get it on shore. And that creates a lot more turbidity in the water. That's one of the factors that I mentioned earlier for that type of dredging, that the DEQ will likely require that go through a longer permitting period to go through an individual permit. And there will be more constraints on the contractor for how they operate and what type of booms they have to set up and what type of monitoring they have to do during all of that procedure. So while the physical action of taking a backhoe in there and removing the material and dumping it on a barge happens faster, I would agree with that. But all the things that need to go around to be operational and in concurrence with the permit requirements is going to end up slowing that process down. When you get that material over to the shore, some of that dewatering has already occurred just from the material sitting on the barge as it's being pulled to the shore. That's to the benefit of being able to then manipulate and utilize that material more readily when you get to the shore. But the process that it creates in the water, as all that stuff is coming off, it's pulling sediments with it. That's creating a lot of turbidity in the water. So that's a lot more controls and monitoring that's going to be required of the contractors of doing that process. So that's one of the reasons why we were trying to find a portion of the project that would benefit from being able to go through the shorter nationwide permit process and be able to get underway quicker. If we do the whole thing and we say we're going to do it all mechanical dredging, then we're pretty much relegating ourselves to the entire project being under that longer permit period. The more volume of material that we're going to try and dredge using that method when we go to the permits, the more pushback I think we're going to get from the agencies, because they recognize that on their side as more and more susceptibility to having something not meet concurrence and being problematic during the permit process or during the construction process to keep it in compliance. So the phase 2 area is the silts. They're deeper in the water and they're lighter materials, and they have a tendency to be in suspension. Whereas in your areas upstream, you're going to have the heavier sands, there are larger particles, and as you pick them up, they have a tendency to drop right back down to the bottom of the water column. So that actually, again, works in your benefit of trying to reduce turbidity as you're handling those materials. When you go in and you dig a bucket into sediment and it's silty, that plume just expands out as you're trying to operate and remove that material. And a lot of that comes up as the bucket comes up. The bucket's coming up 2/3 full of water and very little sediment in the bottom. That's actual physical material that you want to try and remove. So it's harder to manage that process and harder to control actually capturing all the sediments that you want to get out, because you're putting more and more of it in suspension in the water as you're doing the dredging activity. The benefit of hydraulic dredging is that it's moving the water in through an air nozzle as it's extracting the sediment, and it's keeping the sediment in suspension in the water as it's moving through the system into the hoppers and then eventually into the bag. Yes, it takes longer to do water once it gets in the bag, but for that type of material, the really fine-grained silts, it ends up being a much more controlled process. And that's why DEQ typically will allow you to go through the nationwide permit process if you utilize hydraulic dredging. They see it as a much better environmentally friendly process from what they're concerned with, which is environmental pollution. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, the easiest way I can just explain why we think both operations are going to occur the way they are based on the sediments that are there and the confining areas, as well as what we expect is going to be the permitting process that we need to go through in order to get to a point where we can put this out to bid. So we're trying to set it up in a way that is most advantageous to the town to move quickly and get something underway on the dredge process and get that work going while we're going through the longer permit period for the other piece.
Okay.
May I ask a stupid question?
There are no stupid questions.
Exactly. Why not drain the lake, turn it into a little creek, let the stuff sediment on the bottom dry, and go into the front of it and dump from it? Would that not be a hell of a lot cheaper, faster, easier, and cause less problem?
So multiple questions. Would it be faster? Possibly, because of the type of operation that you could do. Would it be more impactful? Yes, you're going to have a lot more impact. Sorry. Yes, you're going to have a lot more impact on wildlife, on the fish and other things that are utilizing that water at this point as you drain the water down. This is part of the water supply for the town, along with Lake Sequoia. So we would have to look at whether or not there's any potential for, as we draw that water down, we would have to make sure that there are measures in place to make sure that we don't end up with backwater coming back through the facilities, and low drains are closed and all that for Lake Sequoia. And then we've got to somehow manage all the inflow that's coming in upstream. Right now, we don't have a lot of inflow coming in. So it would look like it would be easy for us to drain the lake. But recognize you've got to drain the lake from a point of higher water to a point of lower water. Well, there's only so much difference in elevation between this lake and Sequoia Lake. And once you get down to that point, how do you get the rest of the water out of the lake? That's a lot of pumping. So those pumping operations take a long time to draw down, and it costs a lot of money to operate the pumps. It's going to be noise pollution, air pollution, et cetera. So there's pros and cons with going with different methods. But we're talking about a volume of water that's large enough that it becomes an operation in and of itself to drain the lake. That would need to be done in advance of then hiring a contractor to come in and actually remove the dredge material. And then you're dealing with the inconvenience for all the landowners around the perimeter of the lake to deal with the lake being fully dredged or drained, I'm sorry, while it's all being dredged. We've still got the same volume of material we have to deal with. We've still got to haul it to the same location to dispose of it. So in the end, I don't know that it would necessarily be faster. I don't think it would be much cheaper. It's just a different process. There are different things that need to be considered. Here, we're not pumping anything to try and get ready to do the operation. There's a significant amount of upfront work that would have to be done by a different contractor or done by the town operations to get it prepared for that to take place. And by the time we got through to that point, then did the dredging, and then we allowed the lake to fill back up again under natural circumstances. You may end up with a much longer period that lake is unusable for the residents, because that back end piece we don't control. It fills up fast if we get a hurricane, fills up very slow if we end up in a drought period. So there's other unknowns there also.
There's the dam.
Yes.
I understand that you just open that dam, it'll drop the lake.
It'll drop the lake to a certain.
So where's the pumping? What?
No, it'll drop the lake to a certain level. Where is the water level in Lake Sequoia compared to the water level in Mirror Lake? It's not a one-to-one where all of the water would drain out of the lake.
I don't know,
in
I've
order
been
to
by
get-
that dam and
It's big,
yeah.
but we got to look at the depth of the water in the lake also. We're not going to get all the water out of the lake just by opening the low flow of the dam.
It'd be a hell of a lot of it.
It would be, but there's still a significant portion of water that's left
The other question.
before we could go in and have a dry bottom that we could operate.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's still the Colossaga River.
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have an actual plan about how far up Mill Creek will go?
Yes, well, as of right now, the plan that we have put in place, and we presented to the town when they made their final selection for option 2A, is putting the existing channel that comes from the point where the Mill Creek comes into the wetland area. There is an existing channel that's interrupted by some beaver dams. That channel is going to be restored. And then there's another channel that comes partially up, but doesn't connect into where the bridge is. That's going to be connected in. So you'll have two channels that will go through the wetland.
Actual drawing of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was actually in one of the slides that I showed.
So you're coming all the way up to the bridge on Colossaga Drive, is that?
Correct.
Correct.
Understand?
Mhm.
Are you going beyond that at all?
No.
No.
Just curious.
Mhm. I don't think I had it in this slide deck, but there was one in the previous slide deck, and it is part of the plans that we put together. It's in the report documents. So.
In order to.
Okay, hold it.
In order to get mechanical dredges.
Hold it. Let me stop.
Mike and I had a conversation a while back about possible mitigating, you could like buy some land, you can take the wetland out of it, where a certain price, we're going 75,000 acres or something.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the numbers at the time, but
That's
Mhm.
close. So the question was, can we take that little part that we have on the town side of the bridge and expand that to a point where it'll hold the bag, so we have a second bag location and paying the litigation costs? I believe Maryland Criminal Association, we could probably, if it was short the time period of this, we could probably raise the money to mitigate the part of the maintenance, the size of our bags. So is that a possibility, Mike?
That is a question. And I know, Bob, you're asking questions, but, we've been working on this now for 45 minutes. We're not going to be able to solve all these questions tonight. And Mike, you've got the questions down,
I do.
correct? Okay. We've got a lot more planning to do before we finalize the bid documents and so forth.
But the plan for, was it 2C that was decided? Is that
Yeah.
what? 2C.
It was.
But that plan can be made available so they can see where things are being intended to be dredged.
And sorry, option 2A.
2A, yes,
2A.
2A.
Yes, and yes, we can make the plan available.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, I might move that this has been a great discussion, but I might move that however you guys do it, have a separate meeting on this. Maybe we can get Mike Hanson to come back in. We're
When he has
scheduled to
more
have our
information.
annual meeting. Maybe that's a forum for us to raise some of these questions, have you guys kind of weigh in, and so we can move on tonight, because we could be here another hour.
Okay, yeah, we've got to move on
Yeah,
for tonight.
so if
I
there's,
have one other.
if there's a way to do that, you guys figure it out and let me know. How you want to do it. But
Understood.
I appreciate Mike coming out here tonight.
Mhm.
I just was thinking, how, in order to do mechanical dredging with a barge and a barge to receive the material, how wide an area does it take to move up that channel?
That is dependent on the use of the type of equipment that the contractor chooses to use. You can end up utilizing very small equipment, which is likely what will be used in the Mill Creek area, because we're going to end up with a relatively narrow channel. And it might be something similar to what was mentioned earlier, the Bearcat type operation. It's a floatable amphibious machine that actually has a small bucket on it, and it can work on water as well as on land. They make those in various sizes. A larger operation like that may end up utilizing, 15 or 20 feet wide area. The smaller machinery can be operated in something as small as like a 10-foot channel. So
Okay.
it is dependent on what the contractor has available to them when they start the operations, and both what equipment they have and what equipment they can rent to do the project.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mike, thank you for coming in.
All right.
And like I say, this is just one element in one meeting that we'll have. Okay.
Well, so just to address the other question about whether or not we can have a follow-up meeting, just coordinate with Josh and me
Right.
about what that need would be, and we'll try and accommodate as much as we can. I expect that we'll be up here next month to have further discussions on the budget side of things. So that might be an opportunity to combine
Okay.
the two together. Or if we need to do it at a separate time, we can do that also.
Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Mhm. All right, our next item on the agenda, the Evelyn Thames subdivision preliminary and final plat review, Michael Mathis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So an application was submitted to the planning department by Evelyn Thames concerning a property subdivision at 369 Bowery Road. According to a survey by Pioneer Land Surveying, the subject property is 2.84 acres. Town of Highlands zoning map indicates the parcel is zoned R1 residential. According to the Unified Development Ordinance 8.2.1 dimensional standards, the minimum lot size for a property in this zoning district is 0.75 acres. The property will be split into two lots. The first is identified as parcel A on the survey. Parcel A has an existing on-site septic system. Macon County Environmental Health has issued an existing system authorization permit delineating a potential future repair area for parcel A should the existing system fail. Additionally, the county issued an improvements permit for parcel B. Parcel A uses town water and electricity. Parcel B has access to town water and electricity. The planning board reviewed this application on April 27th, 2026. Their recommendation is to approve the preliminary and final plat as submitted. And of course, the staff recommendation is to approve the preliminary and final plat as submitted.
Okay.
Only one quick question. And I'm 99% sure it is, but just to confirm, it wasn't mentioned. It's in the BW area, correct?
It's actually not in a watershed district, I believe. That's
Really?
why I didn't add it on
So it's
there.
one of the few outliers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It sheds the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not concerned with that water.
Upper Clear Creek, there's a couple too, but there aren't many.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I make a motion to approve as submitted.
I just have one question.
Yep.
The septic approval, was it on the lower portion of the lot, for the new lot being combined? Because there's only a short section of that lot that connects to the road, so make sure they have access.
What was that again? When that door shut, I lost you, sorry.
The septic approval, is it on the lower portion of the new lot or?
Well, I don't have
Because
the
it wasn't on the,
survey in front of me, but it's towards the back. For parcel B, it's towards the back of the lot so they can access right there, put the septic behind it and the repair area right there. For parcel A with the existing house, I don't know where
Yeah.
their septic's at because it's so old, but the repair area
yeah,
is
what
actually,
about, it's just for
the
the new
repair
lot.
area is actually to the right of that house in between the property lines.
Just because it's got a short amount of road frontage where that's accessing that lot, so just making sure it wasn't on the upper side of that lot, so.
Yeah, no, it's, if you're looking at the map, it's to the right over there towards the new property line.
All right.
That's where that repair area is at.
All right.
Commissioner Waller made a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Okay, our next item would be the Code of Ordinance Amendments, Article 4, Stopping, Standing, and Parking. Section 7-99, Parking not to obstruct traffic. And we have reviewed this previously. Please have any further comments?
No.
Okay. That was in your pocket, and Nick Tosco will weigh in. Nick?
Yeah, so this is basically just what we had discussed in terms of adding a definition of curve and hill crest so that it's clear what that means, and then consolidating the compliance with the statute. I also added a few things that were in the statute, such as the prohibition not applying to solid waste vehicles that are stopped, and ensuring that there's a penalty provision put in there, and that the town can remove any vehicles that are in violation of that. So that's pretty much the extent of it. Just kind of incorporated all the feedback we got at the last meeting.
Any comments, questions?
Entertain a motion.
I'll certainly will entertain a motion for approval. Okay, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you, the motion carries. All right, our next item would be the town board committees. We've been working on that. We solicited feedback from each commissioner about what committee they would like to serve on. We tried to balance that out, make sure everybody at least got one committee that they were interested in. But, you know, this is a pretty big order. We asked for feedback. I haven't heard any concerns or anything concerning the committees as we proposed and informed. So I'll open it up for any discussion or a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Thank you. We have this new committee structure And, Nick, we should revisit the committees in at our organizational meetings in December, correct?
Yes, that's fine. The committees do not have their own standing rules the way that your Board of Adjustment or you all have, so you all can kind of just decide that, how you want to handle that.
Right. And like, let's say at the next organizational meeting, if we need to make some adjustments, if somebody would like to make some changes, that will be possible. But right now, we'll start using this new committee list to start addressing some real critical issues that I think we need to get to work on. Okay, the next item would be the town board rules and procedures. We reviewed that in detail at the last meeting. I know, Nick, you've made some changes to those rules. I've also added, and I think I shared that with you, we had a code of conduct protocol that was passed for commissioners, that was passed in 2021. While I don't think we need to go back and revisit that, I did think that that kind of interfaces with the procedures of rules for conducting meetings, and that we do have a code of conduct. So do we have any more questions or changes about the proposed procedures for conducting a meeting, board rules?
Move to be approved.
Okay,
Second.
any further discussion?
I think it's fantastic. It is so helpful for, new board members, myself and Bill included, just to have this.
Yeah, I agree.
Very
It's a
good.
Set of guidelines for the board. I think it's a great step forward for the town.
And I think we need to give credit to our town attorney for being proactive, after working with us for a while. So we need to formalize what we do, especially for future meetings where we might need guidance on how to proceed. So thank you, Nick, and I'll now call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, the next item. And I will say this, this has been a really challenging budget planning process this year.
Get one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
15.
15. Oh, I'm sorry. Joint Planning Board and Town Board meeting discussion. I asked that to be put on the agenda. We've been talking about this in the context of our comp plan that we approved some 4 or 5 years ago. And we should take time to review, see where we are on this comp plan. Do we need to make some changes, modifications or so forth? And, I've always indicated that comp plan was not a town board comp plan. It was a community comp plan. And with that spirit, I would like to see us have a joint meeting with the town planning board and sit down and talk with them about where we are on the planning board, and maybe, give the planning board some direction on how they could start looking at the comp plan, if you will, at midstream, and looking at the different areas, interacting with the community, and then possibly coming back at a later date, making recommendations about what we need to focus on in the comp plan, or are there things that we need to adjust or make changes? So this would just be a kind of a joint meeting where we sit down and just get the process started. So does anyone have any concepts? I know Commissioner Weller's been encouraging about doing this.
Yeah, I think it's a very good, I think we should do it. I think what we should do is we should have a work session, let them have a work session, so to speak, or one of their next meetings, whatever, and ask them to look at the comprehensive plan, look at the aspects, look at our zoning, look at, and kind of come up with
Just as
some,
an overview.
as an overview individually, and then we come together and discuss where we think it should be going and they should be going. I just think that would be a good starting point. I think it'd be a lot more productive, other than saying, well, this is what we think we should, everybody spitballing ideas within your own group, so to speak. And then have a joint meeting. That's just a thought. I think that would be a lot more productive in the end.
Okay.
Now that we have the budget out of the way.
What's, yeah, that would help as well.
But I mean, the meetings.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say this. We've got a lot of stuff on our plate. Michael Mathis, our zoning director, I hope you're hearing this, and our town manager, if we could now, with the feedback that we've gotten from the board, let's move forward with setting up those meetings or charging
So
the,
just to clarify, we want individual, not a joint meeting with town board, planning board.
My only thought was that each of the groups should meet and then come with game plans and discussion items and.
And then do
Okay, we have
it,
this
then they
And then
come
we get
together.
together. But that way we don't push them in a direction and they're not basically, you see what I'm saying?
Independently come up what they,
Independently come up and then we have a joint meeting.
Looking
The
at the comp plan,
prioritize.
what the comp plan says that needs to be looked at.
right.
Correct.
And then making suggestions on what they would
Correct.
like to review.
Correct. So like the planning board at their next meeting or whatever it might be.
What they would prioritize, what we would prioritize, and then we'll figure out the.
Correct. Correct.
so that's the course that we'll pursue and follow.
Okay.
If there's a consensus, we should do that.
Yeah, the planning board can set their own meetings out.
And I thought I was gonna have a vacation time this summer.
You can
Okay,
do that next year.
yeah. It's busy. We'll do that. So Josh, does that understand? And Michael?
Michael.
Okay, we'll do that. Now, our next item will be the budget presentation for FY 2026-27, and I will say that this has been a very extensive process with a lot of changes and variables. And I appreciate everything that our staff, our financial director, all of our department heads and our town manager have done in bringing this about. And I'm going to turn it over to Josh Ward for the formal presentation.
Mayor Patrick Taylor and Town Board of Commissioners, I'm pleased to present the fiscal year 2026-27 budget for your review and consideration. As required by the general statutes of North Carolina, the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, the revenues and expenditures within the budget are balanced. In order to present the balanced budget, it was necessary to appropriate $2,955,698 from the undesignated general fund balance, $133,985 from the water fund balance, and $1,177,200 from the electric fund balance. These fund balance appropriations were used to offset capital project deficits and debt service within each department. The current general fund reserve is approximately $3.6 million. The current electric reserve fund is approximately $3 million. The current water improvement reserve is approximately $4.2 million. The budget highlights, as presented, the overall fiscal year 2026-27 budget has revenues and expenditures totaling $40,517,775. The ad valorem property tax rate increases 3 cents to 13.22 cents per $100 valuation. The tax rate will permanently include the previous cent-and-a-half earmark for street paving projects. Resurfacing town streets is an annual maintenance item which requires continuous revenue to support. The valuations are determined by the Macon and Jackson County tax departments. The rate is based on the overall valuation of $3,037,119,671 and an estimated collection rate of 98%. The Highlands Fire District tax rate increases 2 cents to 3.91 cents per $100 valuation. The rate is based on an approximate valuation of $6,092 million and an estimated collection rate of 99.27%. The current Town of Highlands charges for electric service remain unchanged. The current Town of Highlands charges for sanitation service remain unchanged. The Town of Highlands monthly base rates for water and sewer for residential and commercial customers increased 10%. The proposed budget includes a 3% cost of living adjustment for employees. The employee health insurance will move to the North Carolina Health Insurance Pool. The premiums with North Carolina Blue Cross and Blue Shield North Carolina increased 29% over fiscal year 2025-26. Capital expenditures include in the budget
a total of $20,368,300, of which $15,183,000 is grant funding for several water projects. Total expenditures, the total expenditures for all funds are split between individual funds as follows. The general fund, $11,147,198. Scholarship fund, $94,000. Fire department fund, $2,457,075. Fireman's relief fund, $50,000. The cemetery fund, $63,000. Water enterprise fund, $2,353,985. The sewer enterprise fund, $1,081,967. Capital projects fund, $15,576,350. The electric enterprise fund, $7,694,200. Total expenditures, $40,517,775. The general fund, total expenditures for fiscal year 2026 and 27 general fund budget is split between the individual departments and funds as follows. The governing board, $51,200. Administration, $2,002,998. Planning and zoning, $352,000. MISGIS, $913,100. The police department, $2,228,500. Street department, $1,370,200. Public buildings, $131,500. Recreation, $2,403,000, $200. Recreation pool, $339,700. Recreation ice rink, $45,100. And the sanitation department is $1,309,700. The total expenditure is $11,147,198. Capital items included within the general fund total $2,952,800. The administration department includes $158,000 of capital, including replacement of the generator at Town Hall, replacement vehicle, a study of the Town Hall property, and exterior repairs to Town Hall. The street department includes $520,000 of capital, including an excavator and trailer, paving of streets and parking, sidewalk repairs, road striping, and road salt. The sanitation department includes $340,000 for a replacement of a full-size garbage truck. The police department includes $101,800 of capital, including one replacement patrol vehicle with equipment and replacement of 3 tablets. The Parks and Recreation Department includes $1,663,000 of capital, including the construction of the new playground, a replacement vehicle, and HVAC upgrades in the recreation center. The Planning and Development Department includes $95,000 of capital, including a replacement vehicle and carryover Unified Development Ordinance legal review. The MISGIS Department includes $75,000 of capital, including a replacement vehicle and video server replacement. Debt service within the general fund includes $394,000 for the fiber system construction loan, $15,698 debt service for the Kelsey Hutchinson Park stormwater improvements. Enterprise funds, the town of Highlands operates the following enterprise funds, that is the water, the sewer, and the electric. Water fund, the total expenditures for fiscal year 2026-27 and the water enterprise fund are $2,353,985. The total capital within the water enterprise fund is $200,000, which includes a truck replacement, excavator trailer replacement, Little Bear Pen tank site gauge, valve replacement, water tank cleanings, and pump rebuilds. Debt service within the water enterprise fund includes $20,685 for the Lake Sequoia water intake project and $250,000 to the electric fund for a loan payment to support the fund balance. The sewer fund, total expenditures for fiscal year 2026-27 and the sewer enterprise fund are $1,081,985.
$967. The total capital within the sewer enterprise fund is $354,000. This includes the Highway 64 force main repairs, Shelby Place lift station improvements, Lower Brushy Face lift station improvements, and Arnold Road pump station roof. The debt service includes $56,967 for the Mirror Lake Sewer Project. The electric fund, total expenditures for fiscal year 2026-27 electric enterprise fund are $7,694,200. Total capital within the electric enterprise fund is $1,678,500, including electric delivery point and system improvements, 2 replacement trucks, underground fault locator, mulch head attachment, and contract tree trimming. Special revenue funds in fiscal year 2026 and 2027 budget includes the following special revenue funds. That's the fire department and the capital projects. The fire department fund, the total expenditures for fiscal year 2026 and 27 fire department fund are $2,457,075. The total capital for the fire department is $300,575. This is towards the purchase of a new pumper truck. The total debt service for the department is $600,000, which is the loan payment for the construction of the main station. The Highlands Fire Department provides service to the town of Highlands and the portions of unincorporated areas of Macon and Jackson counties. The revenue for the fire department is generated 100% through the fire district ad valorem property tax. The Highlands Fire District tax increases to 3.91 cents per $100 valuation. Capital Projects Fund, the total expenditures for fiscal year 2026-27 and the Capital Projects Fund, $15,576,350. These funds are allocated for new construction projects, including the sewer force main repair, $300,000, water treatment plant improvements, $6,672,000, Mirror Lake dredging, $4,886,000, Black Rock waterline replacement, $410,000, Hammond Road waterline replacement, $770,000, Webb Branch waterline replacement, $417,000, Buttermilk waterline replacement, $325,000, Chowan Road waterline replacement, $530,000, water treatment plant generator replacement, $1,173,000. And then the debt service for the Mirror Lake Sewer Project, $56,967. Debt service for the Kelsey Hutchinson Stormwater Improvements, $15,698. And debt service for Lake Sequoia Water Intake Project, which is $20,685. So the financial outlook, the town's undesignated general fund balance has been declining over the last several fiscal years. Major contributors to the decline in the fund balance can be attributed to the funding of several major capital projects, the inability to use the electric reserves to fund capital needs, and the inflation experienced over the last several years. The proposed ad valorem property tax increase in fiscal year 2026-27 will ensure the operations of the general fund will be supported without appropriation and provide some additional revenue to assist with capital needs in the future. The electric fund balance remains strong, but the reserves have decreased considerably due to the funding of the critical electric system upgrades currently underway. A large portion of the reserve funds were used as a loan to support the water fund balance. With the water and sewer rates increasing for the third consecutive year, the funds will be available to service the debt payments to the electric reserve and will continue to assist the building back of the water fund balance. Beginning next fiscal year, the auditor's recommendation of an annual schedule of continued small percentage increases will ensure the water fund will keep pace with inflation costs. Without grant funding, only emergency water and sewer repair projects should be considered for the next several years until a healthy fund balance is reestablished. With the increase in sanitation charges in fiscal year 2025-26, the sanitation department is supporting its operational costs for the first time in several years. Closing comments, I would like to thank Mayor Taylor and the town board for their guidance and working with staff during the budget development process. I'd also like to commend the finance director and department heads for the diligent work they put into the budget in order to ensure sufficient funding in the areas needed. In closing, I look forward to implementing this budget and hope that we continue to achieve our priorities and goals of providing quality public services to the community.
Thank you, Josh. Anyone have any questions concerning the proposed budget? If hearing none, I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing for the June meeting concerning the adoption of the new town budget.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Our next item is a closed session pursuant to GS 143-318.11A3 to consult with an attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to consider and give instructions to the attorney concerning the handling or settlement of Highlands Beauty and Art LLC versus Town of Highlands TAL. Do I have a motion for the board to go into closed session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. We are now in closed session.
I'll be right back.